Ladies and gentlemen, politics is a psyop. That's what we need, isn't it? One of these like giant megaphones, just to make everyone know, the masses know, that politics is a psyop that people keep falling for. Time in, time out. Every 4 or 5 years, is it here in the UK? Like how many general elections are going to pass before people realise they're getting scammed? Nothing's changing, right? So, surely, like, if the system keeps failing time and time again, we need to absolutely change the system. We need to change society fundamentally. And that begins by not entertaining the system, not voting. And that's blasphemy to a lot of people, unfortunately, still. You've got people like Russell Brand who were saying that years ago, and that was met with scorning sort of responses back then. But even now, people just can't, it's because politics is sort of a background thing. That's how they get away with it. Because most people are preoccupied with what they're doing, right? Their work, day in, day out. They wake up, have their Cocoa Pops, and then off they go. They put their suit on or whatever, but maybe not anymore. And, off they go. And then they come home, and it's very difficult for people to actually focus on real issues such as poverty, inequality. And why do these things exist? Why starvation? Right? Why is that still happening? Right? We have got children in need and Live Aid. These things happen one day out of 365. So what on earth's that going to do? Right? So this is sort of again, it's a programmed sort of way of thinking. We're told to care on this day, and then you just forget about it, right? So we need to generate true care. We need to stimulate, well, the Ajna chakra, which will actually raise the kundalini, and it will actually, conceive of true care in the individual. But this is getting a bit esoteric for what is ultimately a secular video this time, which is mainly about politics. So here's some of them. Look, here's old Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau, all the way back to George W. Bush, George W. Bonkers. But there is a method to the madness. They actually recruit stupid people to make you react, and then they're going to bring someone in like Barack Obama. Oh my God, thank you. Oh, thank God for that. So what's happening is it's basically a shit show, a pantomime. It's bread and circuses, right? As we've known all the way back, from the beginning. Julius Caesar, let's talk about bread and circuses. We've got infinite distractions. So if you're not interested in football, if you're not interested in Michael McIntyre's Roadshow, if you're not interested in watching Casualty on a Saturday night, perhaps you're interested in what you think of as being loftier, more worldly things, and that politics would be the psyop for that sort of person. Because what's happening is your mind is getting vested into a cult-like faith in authority. Remember what Albert Einstein said? Unthinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. So as long as you're vested in this system, which is ultimately controlled from the top, and then they're giving this illusion of democracy. Like, you can choose this, you can choose that, you can choose that. Where do you want to be? It's like, well, can we have basic human rights, shelter, energy, food, and water? Can we, we're paying you all this money in tax. Surely the first thing we should have in return is the essential things we actually physiologically need for our existence. Wouldn't you think? Right? It's the year 2022. No, that's off limits, see? There's a controlled choice. So they're going to keep psyoping us by having this sort of 2 steps forward and 1 step back left wing, and then unfortunately 1 step forward and 2 steps back Tory pie. And so you've got this sort of warlike divide and rule strategy where people are just getting so, as long as your attention and your gaze is focused upon them, that's all they care about. Whichever side of it you sort of get vested in, right? You've got to realise that it's 2 wings of the same bird. The best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves, as Vladimir Lenin said, as we talked about in the previous video. This is how it works. And what's unfortunate is that, as a result of that, we're outsourcing our power. We're outsourcing our capacity to produce change on the planet. I mean, obviously it's going to come from us. We are the 99.9 recurring percent, right? There's 7.8 billion people on this planet. How many of them are politicians? And so they've psyoped us, which actually is more like a type of sorcery. So 21st century fascism, we talked about that in the previous video, is purely psychological. It's psychological manipulation. As long as they've got your mind, they've got the way that you feel. And so it's an emotional manipulation as well. And they've got you the way that you actually act and move in the world as well. Because, you're not going to start up your own stuff when you have this sort of unthinking respect in authority. So was it Plato said that those who can see through the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses. But this is sort of like an entry level video, really. Like, hopefully most people now who are drawn to this awakening movement can see through these psychological operations. And politics is absolutely one of them, right? It absolutely traps and incarcerates the mind, unfortunately. So we have an illusory political system. We have the illusion of democracy. And that's really, I've got to say of this video, you know, like, apart from to say, like, you know, the solution has always been for us to come together and realize that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And so New Earth Land is ultimately a humanitarian movement towards a post-capitalist world where we balance out some of these socialist principles. And, you know, it's not about removing totally this sort of token-based system, which you might want to call capitalism. It's about chipping away at it a little bit and replacing the foundation with a socialist foundation so that we have basic rights to exist. So that shelter, energy, food and water, those things, if you go onto newearth.land, you can see how this can all be incorporated in our direct, independent, autonomous co-housing environments, right? All we need to do is do what the government should have been doing all along, which is using our money to build us homes as an essential human right, right? And then it doesn't mean you're going to like stay at home and watch paint dry. You're going to still work for all the other things that you want. But our existence must be a human right, right? Right? So, you know, we're on a tiny little island in space. Why would it not be that way, right? So, you know, this is just a pointer, newearth.land, if you want to check it out in more detail. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one where we might talk about some like ancient civilizations. Perhaps we'll talk about Lemuria or Atlantis, and really sort of like trying to understand the true history of humanity. Like, history needs to be rewritten. Like, we've been lied to in so many more ways, and so that's why I'm sort of going to try and rebrand this as, you know, maybe like World Awakening or something like this along those themes, because I realise that it's typically people who are spiritually awakening. I don't like that word, but to this truth. Like, people are putting their head above the parapet and are seeing the sorcery, if you like, for want of a better word. That's what it is. So anyway, yeah, like I say, thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one.